Hi Koonies, this is Koon. Welcome back to Koon's channel. There are a lot of Granblue Fantasy players who pick up Granblue Fantasy Versus recently. However, I believe a lot of you guys are just like me. We have no idea about fighting games, where to start, how to start, and what to do. We keep making mistakes over and over again. I think my problems are probably also your problems. So in the past few weeks, I went to some tournaments, I went online and tried to speak with some very nice senpai and players who have been playing fighting games for years. They pointed out my mistakes and gave me some very nice advices. With all these teachings, I actually managed to see my own improvement over the time. I'm not saying that I'm already very good at playing this game, but I'm definitely better than who I used to be a few weeks ago. So today I'm going to compile all these mistakes and useful tips together in one single video and see how we can improve together in fighting games, not just Granblue Versus, because all these mistakes and tips are pretty universal. Hopefully with this information you can start your journey with a direction, go from nobody to somebody, and if possible from a casual player to a competitive player. Let's do it. The biggest and the most common mistake when playing a fighting game is to skip its tutorial. This is not something new. If you watch other videos or read some other online guides, the first thing they would ask you to do is probably going through the tutorial. I know it may sound a little bit boring to you, but all my senpais without exception asked me to finish the tutorial before I jump into the arena. I think Granblue Versus did a great job in designing their tutorial. In order to encourage players to go through these tutorials, they even prepare some nice rewards for you to exchange items and stuff in the game. I think this is very cool, very considerate. Besides of getting new knowledge and information, you can also get familiar with some simple combos when you go through the tutorial. This, I can tell you, is a very rewarding and important step for fighting games. If you don't have a good foundation, you're going to have difficulty in understanding the game mechanisms, and in the end you still have to go back to the tutorial because you don't know why people can do this and that but you can't. So it's better for you to get rid of all these question marks before you start. A lot of new players, especially players who are not familiar with fighting games, tend to play Granblue Versus with the left stick on their controller instead of D-pad with directional buttons. However, in fighting games, your execution, your timing and your accuracy are extremely important. Using left stick to control your character will always end up making mistakes because it is very difficult to input commands accurately with a stick. It is better for you to use D-pad on your controller to play fighting games because it's easier for you to input commands and do the right moves. The biggest disadvantage of using D-pad is that if you are a newcomer, you feel uncomfortable with your thumb or even feel pain after a few hours of playing due to friction. Maybe you can try one of my Facebook friends' suggestions and use a cloth or a handkerchief to cover the D-pad while playing. This will help to relieve that uncomfortable feeling on your thumb. Fighting games have their own language, and this language also applies to Granblue Versus. There are a lot of video guides and combo guides on the internet teaching you how to make useful combo move and improve your fighting style, but most of these guides are written in notation format, such as 236H or 214L. If you don't learn, you can't read, how are you going to improve? These are actually number pad notation, and the format goes exactly like the number pad on the right hand side of a keyboard. In Granblue Versus, L means light hit or square, M means medium hit or triangle. H is not dead H, but it means heavy or circle, while S is cross or the unique skill button of Granblue Versus. Some other notations or abbreviations like J is jump, CH is counter hit, XN is repeat n amount of times or hits, etc. etc. So if you see a notation like triple H, 236H, it means triple heavy attacks and a standard quarter circle forward projectile. and it goes like this in the game. I'm still trying my best to learn this language, so if you have any good references or you are very familiar with all these notations, please leave a comment to share your knowledge or a reference here. I'm sure a lot of new players, including me, will be very grateful of your sharing. Playing a game without understanding its basic knowledge is a big no. My senpais all say that I was too impatient in learning fighting games and I should build a solid foundation before I try to do combos or anything else, because without this basic knowledge in our mind, it is very difficult for us to guard against our opponent's attack or come up with a strategy, and we can very easily expose our own weakness when we are playing. It is very important to know your buttons. In Granblue Fantasy Versus, we have very common L, M, H and S buttons. They are light, medium, heavy and unique attack respectively. If you press one of these buttons and there is no target within your range, you will just see some single attacks. But if your opponent is within the range and you're close enough to hit multiple times, your single attack will automatically become a combo. Light attack has the fastest recovery, so it is a very good way to poke your opponent to see whether there is a weak point or a chance to launch a series of attacks. Medium attack is also good, but of course the recovery is lower, so there is a bigger chance for your opponent to strike back or punish your attack. That's why sometimes you see a word punish on the HUD. It basically means that you punish your opponent when they were trying to attack you. The purpose of this feature is to help you differentiate whether you actually punish your opponent's attack or they were just not blocking. Meanwhile, the recovery of heavy attack is the slowest, so it is easier for your opponent to do a counter attack, but heavy attack is a very good starter to launch your combos or even extend your combos, so there is always some advantages and disadvantages using this attack. Granblue Versus also has a dedicated block button, which is the R2 button on your controller. There are a few knowledges about blocking I would like to share in this video. First of all, I would say that R2 block button is good because it is easy to use and there is less chance for new players to mess up their fight, especially when you compare this with the traditional blocking where you need to hold backward or crouch backward to block. However, there are a lot of players discover that using R2 block button actually holds you at one place, so your movement will suddenly become very stiff, which also makes you vulnerable to grabs and throws. My suggestion, I think it is better for you to use both R2 and the backward blocking in a flexible way based on your situation. Basically, there are 4 types of blockings in Granblue Versus. The first one is standing block or ground block. The second one is crouching block or low block. And then we have air block, and the last one is instant block. If you're using a standing block, you need to watch out for grabs and throws, and of course, low sweeping attacks, because standing block is unable to block low attacks. On the other hand, doing a low attack is easy. You only have to press down and unique button at the same time to do a low attack. To grab and throw your opponent, simply press L and M at the same time, or you can also use L1 to grab your opponent. I prefer using L1 because it is easier for me. If you're using a crouching block, you need to be very mindful about overhead, because an overhead can easily get through your defense even if you're doing very safe crouching block at the screen corner. To use an overhead, you need to press M and H button at the same time, or simply use L2 to launch an overhead attack. Air block happens when you block in mid-air. You still need to be very careful with this because air block is unable to guard against all standing normal attacks and H versions of skills. The last type of blocking is called instant block, which I have yet to master because instant block needs you to block just at the right timing. Doing an instant block will give you an extra bonus on your skybound gauge. You will see a word just on your screen if you successfully did an instant block during a fight. In addition, you can also use block button plus a directional button to do a crossover or a dodge. When you press block and forward buttons together, you'll be able to do a crossover. You can use crossover to sneak to the back of your opponent or use this move to avoid attacks. However, you're not immune to low attack and sweeping attack when doing this move, so you still have to be very careful. If you press block button and backward button at the same time, you'll be able to perform a dodge. You can avoid all kinds of attacks using dodge except for grabs and throws. Meanwhile, there's also a special button or easy button in Granblue Versus for you to cast your skills. Simply press R1 together with a directional button. You'll be able to dish out fancy skills like any of your senpais. I personally think that this is a very considerate design for new players. However, if you plan to go competitive, it's better for you to get familiar with the manual input, because although it is very convenient to use the special button, its cooldown is a lot longer than manual commands. Skyball art in Granblue Versus, which we usually call them SBA or SSBA, is not affected by cooldown. Even if there is a cooldown, you still need time to build up your SBA gauge, and by the time you reach 100%, the cooldown is already up, so feel free to cast your SBA and SSBA with special or easy button because there is no penalty here. Finally, if you press S and hash together, you'll be able to do a taunt animation. Each character has their own special animation, so remember to check them out and see which one is your favorite. Going online immediately when I just started playing Granblue Versus is probably one of my biggest mistakes. I understand everyone craves to try out new things in a new game when they get their copy. However, go online without preparation always ends up with a very discouraging experience in fighting games. I think it is very important to try your move and combos with NPC first before you go online. This will not only help you to improve your execution, but it also allows you to be more familiar with skills of different characters. Free training is good, mission training is also good, but I think the best way to hone your skill is to play through the RPG mode and arcade training. They are very fun to play with, they are less boring, and they actually help you to build your confidence. From here, then only you start slowly to play online, like 3 rounds of RPG, 1 round of online match, something like that. You can go ranking or find some other players in lobby, but try to look for players with a star on their head, because their ranking or their skill level is usually closer to yours. People who like to play games usually don't like to read. This is so true, and it is also one very common mistake among new players. I know there are a lot of new players that are just like me. They install their Granblue Versus, pick up their controller, straight away started to throwing punches without even looking at the command list. But guys, the command list in Granblue Versus are not just some random input commands. They actually explain the function, the strength, and the weakness of every single skill in details. If you want to be good in playing Granblue Versus, it's advisable for you to go through all the description in the command list. Trust me, you're going to be surprised, because they offer so much information about the characters in this game. Meanwhile, you should also try to find guide videos and articles online to get more knowledge about this game. The better you know yourself, the better you know your opponent, the better you fight, and the higher chance you win. That's why I believe reading is one of the most powerful life hacks in Granblue Versus. Fighting human is totally different from fighting a training dummy or a CPU trainer. I can easily beat any CPU at nightmare level, but when I go online and fight with real players, I feel the sense of powerless, because human players are so much unpredictable. They won't charge forward, running up to your face and punch you with all they have. Most of them fight very carefully, and they always wait for that one single moment, one single chance to pinch you down. So it is very unwise and unpractical to think that, hey, I'm going to use my combo on this guy just like what I did in my training. Now, this is a very unrealistic way of thinking when it comes to fighting game, but most new players, including me, didn't realize this at first until we're all beaten up. So please don't expect you can use your fancy combos on human players just like your training. My suggestion, and also my senpai's suggestion to new players. Try to slow down, be steady, and learn to observe your opponent before making a strike. I know it is very hard to resist the urge of making a strike, especially when all your cooldown is up, and it may also sound a little bit defensive. But if you seriously want to win a match, especially at competitive level, this is a very important mindset. You should always try different ways to poke your opponent. Maybe you could use light attack, projectiles, simply anything, but never charge forward without a solid strategy or plan to counterattack in your mind. Sometimes, simple attacks and moves may also help you to win a game, so don't narrow down yourself and think that you can only win a match by using breathtaking combos or SPA. Last but not least, a bonus tip for all new players: remember to have fun, because games are meant to enrich your life. Even if you lose a match, never blame your opponent for being too good. Fighting game is all about self-improvement, so try to challenge yourself to be a better man, learn from mistakes, and I'm sure you'll be able to improve over time. By the way, there are a lot of players asking me whether there is Japanese voice acting in the NA version. The answer is yes, and you can easily switch between languages and different subtitles to get the best of both worlds. If you still haven't got your copy of Granblue Fantasy Versus and you're not too sure about its value, you can always go back to my previous video to discover the RPG mode of this game and its value. I've also prepared a collaboration link in the video description below for you to buy this game directly from its publisher. It is very safe, there is no extra cost for you to buy your copy through this link, and most importantly, it can help me to get more chances to work with these guys in future. So if you want to support Koon, if you want to support Granblue Versus and play this wonderful game, do it now. There are already thousands and thousands of players playing this game, and the feedback is pretty good. Finally, it would be great if you could tell us your mistakes and suggestions in the comment section below, because the sharing is going to help players from all over the world. If you think that this video is helpful, don't forget to share it with your friends, give me a thumbs up, subscribe to this channel, and remember to ring the bell. This is Koon. I will see you again in the next video. Ciao.